Welcome back to the Catalyst Pharmacy podcast. A little bit of a hiatus, at least for me, a little bit. It's just a busy summer in general, so I was really excited to get back to doing it. We had our conference, we had all the wholesaler conferences. Our special guest this time, right before NCPA, which is really timely, is Jeff Harrell, the current NCPA President. He's also the current CEO of the Cascadia Pharmacy Group, which is a group of, I believe, 45-ish pharmacies now up in the Pacific Northwest. Really one, just like, it's Jeff again. It's his fourth time he's been on. He's so transparent. So like, I know I thank him all the time because of how just like candid he is and how open he is about it, but very much worth a listen. It's right before the NCPA conference. So if you're not going to the NCPA conference, and he has a really cool story about how active and how that activity and unity inside like the Australian Pharmacy Association drives reimbursement for them. And yes, it's a different payer system over there, but there's a really cool story on like how active that group is relative to the US market. So he's got a lot of cool stories and insights around his year as NCPA president. He'll roll into the immediate past president role after NCPA. And then, of course, we're going to pick his brain. And he does a great job of elaborating on just like what ownership looks like now, the folks they look for, and then when they're adding folks to their group. And also what it was like actually buying a couple of Rite Aid stores, which I don't think I've met anyone in the community space at all who's had like firsthand experience with that. So if any of you are listening were curious or thinking through, maybe I throw a hat in the ring for this and go through the process, he talks through what that's like. And then what that growth has led to with Rite Aid kind of closing down next to some of his stores, working capital commitments for that. And then also we kind of wrap up talking about their approach to GLP-1s and what he thinks about with that, and then just wrap it up a little bit about life. And so we'll take you there now. Thanks. Jeff, you're I really think the busiest man on the planet at the moment. So appreciate you even giving us any of this time at all. I tell everybody that you're one of the few people in my phone that I know picks up literally every freaking time or texts back every freaking time. You're like always available. I'm sure that comes at a cost as well. But when it comes to like pharmacy, I know, sorry to like give you so much praise before we even get going, but man, that's how I feel. I think that's how the community feels. And I know it's about really trying to just make pharmacy better. I'm sure from your perspective.
Absolutely. Yeah.
The other thing I was going to like talk through. So like, you've had you're almost done with your run this year as the NCPA president. I think you've made a lot of impact. You've made I think a big impression on a lot of folks too. Just in general, man, I just wanted to talk through a little bit, like as you've gone through it, a little bit of just like what you've seen, what you've observed, what you've learned, maybe the impact you've seen other pharmacies make. I'll let you just kind of riff.
It's been a great year. I think I have somewhere between 160,000 and 180,000 in the air miles. This year, each president's a little different for NCPA based off, where they're at in their stores and the amount of travel they can do and family and different stuff. But this year I've been fortunate to be able to go full throttle. Kind of one of my presentations is captioned full throttle, but you go on to presidency and then it kind of drops off for the holidays, and then you hit the ground running in January. And, my goal this year was to really, two things, was to hit as many colleges of pharmacy as possible and to do as much with the associations in different states as possible. Two separate reasons. One is that academia, unless it's a college that has professors and mentors and leaders that are familiar with community pharmacy, are not giving the message about independent community pharmacy to their students. It's institutional this, it's fellowship this, it's residency this, it's hospital this, ambulatory care can only be done in this setting. And so after about 2 or 3 visits, I realized how much work NCPA needs to do to change the narrative, right? And start setting up our future owners and managers and leaders in pharmacy, and give them that exposure to community pharmacy. They're not getting it. Now, it's not any fault of those people there. The people that are teaching them and coaching them just have never experienced, the wonders of community pharmacy. So coming out of my first visits, I went back to the board and I said, listen, I'm going to charge the board. I want a program that funds that our board and our vice president, so there's 12 of us, visit 4 colleges a year around the country. That'd be 72 colleges if I'm doing my math right.
Oh, wow.
And change the narrative. And Drew, with NCPA, Drew Register, and the board was a unanimous, vote to do this. And we have deployed, and it has absolutely been phenomenal. And so if you watch the LinkedIn's and the Facebook stuff from the different board members, you start to see where they're at and what they're doing. And so we're changing that narrative now, specifically these institutional teaching hospital universities where everything is clinical, blah, 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 blah. Ambulatory care was developed in independent pharmacy, and we do such an array of types of ambulatory care, but it's not, that message isn't getting out. So that was one of my charges. The other charge was, I'm tired of us not telling the public what kind of a premium product we are. We've talked about Pappy Van Winkle. We've talked about A5 Wagyus. My latest thing is this. If you go to the gas pump and you go to reach for the premium pump handle and you press that button, are you expected to pay more when you put the premium gas in your car? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we're the premium freaking gas.
1,000.
And why are we not getting, that premium pay for the premium service, critical access designations and rural and frontier and all these different words? It doesn't have to be in a rural area. A metro and an urban pharmacy with the closures is just as important as a rural pharmacy out 40 miles, 50 miles. So the premium product that we are, don't be afraid to charge, voice that, what the quality that you're giving, and hopefully change that narrative is that, I always go to stuff that I've had in my life, and I was a fisherman early on growing up. And if you catch tuna commercially and you bleed them and you put them in ice, you get paid, let's just say $2. Okay. The fish is taken well care of, but it's $2. If you catch the tuna and you spike it in the head a certain way to kill it, then bleed it, and then blast freeze it, you get $3, right? Because this product is more premium. There's not an industry in the entire country that when you go to buy their premium product, you're getting paid less. Anywhere from fishing to cars to boats to whatever, I'm at the top of the line. Oh, well, hey, that's $10,000 less. No, we're top of the line and we're getting the bottom of the line payment. And so that's where my other charge was to push that we, that to really push that we're a premium product and change that narrative just amongst not only our patients, our customers, but our peers and our partners, which are PBMs and wholesalers and all of them. As much as we hate to say they're our partners, they have to be, and in our pharmacy management system. So those are the two big things, and we've hit a lot of places. I got a little map that my team made of the fly thing.
You have that? Is that posted anywhere? Honestly, we missed the opportunity to make like a website tracker, honestly, of like where you were.
Yeah, it's like the Santa, right? Where Santa is, the finder. So yeah, it's crazy. I don't know if you could see it, but there it is.
Yeah, no, we can see that. Find. Holy crap. Oh, wait, hold on. That's also Australia, and is that Singapore?
That's Singapore, exactly. We could talk a little about that. Both pharmacy trips as president, and some good stuff came out of both of those.
So a couple things on there. Like, I love what you guys are doing with I love that initiative with the students. Something that we've always done here is try to rotate students, even in our own environment, to be like, look, you can even see community pharmacy in a different way from the technology side of the house, which is really, really cool. And almost all, like, I swear, every time they come in there, they enlighten in that way. And usually after that, they go straight to a community residency in some way, which is really cool. Or rotation, usually a rotation. Um, so I think that's, did you get some optimism out of that? I think that's kind of like have really with that particular initiative.
I don't pull any punches and I tell it how it is. And when I do my presentations, I talk about the financial reward as well and show them the money and show them, the flexibility and the freedom and the nimbleness that they get in our space. And you could see some of their eyes just light up, right? They haven't heard that side of things. That's another thing, when we have owners that want to sell, but they keep their numbers so private, and then the next thing you know, they have a change of events and their store goes, circling the drain or whatnot. So we got to be forthcoming with the future and show them the true roadmap and the potential fruit, that's there. So in my presentations, when I speak to them, I'm very candid, very open, and it definitely opens their eyes.
Yeah, so it's rewarding not only from like usually everyone's getting into pharmacy because they care about people and chemistry and things like that in the world, but also like opening their eyes to like it can be rewarding also financially under the right conditions.
You don't go into independent community pharmacy ownership unless there is professional reward, personal reward, and financial reward. Why would you take that risk if the financial reward part wasn't there? I mean, you could just go check in and check out at a job, make good money, see your patients, do your job well, maybe not have the freedom that you have, being your own boss. But there's nothing wrong with having financial reward for the risk that you take and the employee liabilities and all that kind of stuff. It has to be there. It has to.
Yeah. Has to be. All right, I'll pivot to a little bit of the travel schedule, which was one just cool to see. Every time I talk to you, I think you were getting on a plane or getting off a plane. Even when you came to our little Connect conference over there, I think you're right in, right out, kind of on to the next one. It was but also like, what did the international lens give you? That's one thing I was wanting to like.
Yeah. So as president, you get to go to a couple international meetings that NCPA is part of. One is the World Pharmacy Council. And I was in Singapore this year, and it was really cool. It's like you're at this United Nations table with, I think there was 14 or 16 different countries. They had the flags. We even had AI interpreter software there that would even pick up like the slang and dialect of the Great Britons and it was crazy. And it was the Japanese were there and it worked really well. Really what you learn in those, because each country is so different. I learned two things. I learned, number one, misery likes company. So if we're having problems, then they're having problems. And we could talk about our problems. So every country has problems. But number two is the grossness of what the PBMs have done to the drug market in our country. And not one country paid more than $200 for GLP-1s, but us. And guess what they don't have? None of them have PBMs.
Wow.
So that was my Singapore in a nutshell.
Oh, wow.
And that was the World Pharmacy Council. We learned some little tidbits of clinical services, different things like that, and sharing. But each country is different. But what I really learned was you get to go to. I got an extra trip. I got to go to the Pharmacy Guild of Australia. I got invited by Trent Tomey, who's the equivalent of Doug Hoy in Australia. So he's the president or CEO of the Pharmacy Guild of Australia. And then Doug would be the equivalent of National Community Pharmacy Association here in the United States. So I'm just going to run through some numbers here, and it was staggering to me. They have 6,000 pharmacies total in Australia. Okay.
In Australia.
Okay.
I don't have a frame of reference. I feel like that's high for what I thought.
We're 19,000. Okay. There's 6,000 independents or pharmacies. We have 19,000. Okay. So there's quite a discrepancy there. They have 3,800 guild members. So they control over half of the 6,000. Okay. You following me?
Yeah. Tracking.
Trent being the leader of the guild and those 3,800 guild pharmacies, when he says jump, all 3,800 say how high. When he says lock your doors, we're blocking them out today, all 3,800 locked their doors. When he says don't accept that reimbursement from the prime minister, from the state, they don't accept that in all 3,800. They're lockstep, they're hand in hand, and they're unified. Okay? At their conference of 6,000 pharmacies with only 3,800 of the guild, you had 7,600 pharmacists and technicians at the conference.
Holy
7,600, okay?
I don't think I've ever seen 7,000 pharmacists and technicians in one place.
Not even at a wholesaler anymore.
Not at a wholesaler.
So we have 19,000 in the United States. NCPA's got roughly 3,200 members, okay? 19 to 32, 6,000 to 38. If we say jump, if Doug says jump, everybody jumps a different direction. Nobody's aligned. If he says lock your doors, 2 people lock your doors, the other guys open their doors for the 2 people that lock theirs and take their customers. If we say at a PSA level, don't take the contract, everybody runs home and signs the contract directly.
The direct one. Yep.
We're not unified. We're not following the same message, and we've created a lot of our own problems by that. And Australia blew my mind in how they have moved the needle and how rich their pharmacies are doing because they're unity and they stayed together. I get it's a different payer system. We've got PBMs. They don't. They're with the government, one payer. But our unity can create more of what they're doing if we all stuck together and stayed on the message. And that's kind of another thing I've been preaching this year a little bit as I've traveled.
Do you feel like it's as impactful? This has always been a theory of mine, and Jeff Key and I used to talk about this. Do you think it's even impactful to start regionally and start smaller? Because some of the Medicaid payers, some of that stuff is just like some of the payers are regional and starting there. Like, because that's the one thing I was like, how do you get 10,000 to all move at once? And I always felt like that was a really tough elephant to bite a little bit.
No, it's a big elephant because you've got not only do you have different sides of the country, the East, you got, East Coast people, West Coast people, Midwest people. Then you got to miss all the different ethnicities in there and the different, and perspectives in life and business, right? So you've got a whole thing of marbles, all different colored marbles, but the region is something I think, because if you can control the lives in certain areas, and that's when you can start to move the needle, is having a little bit of they have to have you, right?
100%. Right.
Then they need you or they want to have you, but maybe if you didn't do it, someone else would do them, and that's a little bit what we're doing in our group, Cascadia, is I'm buying pharmacies in areas where we control our own narrative, so to speak.
That's good. Okay, guys, that's what me and Jeff were always like, if we could figure out how to work in a way where it was like, national always felt hard for me. And I was like, and so Jeff and I were like, what if we could do it regionally and you could just like own all, like, because we had so many pharmacies in Louisiana in some way. Like, how could you get all the pharmacies in Louisiana to do exactly what you're saying? They all jump and say how high, right? And they all jump the same direction, like you're saying. And I was just like, that was something that was just like, man, how do you create that in a way where they're actually all moving towards the same goalpost?
Well, I do think, though, that we've hit rock bottom, and we're at a point in time where people see that we need to do this more. Control your own destiny, control your own narrative, and flex your muscles if you got a patient base that you have the majority of, or you're doing something unique and special that no one else is.
Do it. Yeah. Okay, that's a good segue to a little bit of, I'm interested in like your conversations, because I think educating on the premium service is 100%. I love that framing. I imagine you were doing that in spades with legislators in some form or fashion all throughout the country. I know Doug does that all day, every day. In general, I just wanted to get your perspective this year on what that was like. It feels like they're more receptive than they've ever been, and maybe slightly more educated than they've ever been. And I think that's always been a game of inches, it feels like, of just getting them educated and on board. But I just wanted to like get your perspective on the year you've had. speaking to legislators specifically.
I think you're right. I think they're more educated than they ever have been. I mean, with having two pharmacists, in Congress right now, and hopefully one in the Senate soon, they're there to take the questions of those that are lacking the knowledge. It's still going to be a challenge because you're going to get new ones coming and going, and you got to re-educate. And if it's not, if it's not their jam, they don't care. I mean, they're worried about the spotted owl or trees or whatever, mushrooms, whatever, line of business it is. And so I think that that our narrative is more understood than it ever has been because we've had the bill at the doorstep, once and then got removed for the bird bath thing. And now here we are again, hoping to get it through before the end of the year. And so, yeah, so when I met with them, the sitting down and handing them the folder and all of that, that I don't do that anymore. We just talk, I just give them anecdotal stuff that's going on, on the ground, what they're seeing in their district and what I'm seeing in their districts, what they can help us with. Obviously we tell them what bills we want them to support us and stuff. But, I was just in Salem in Oregon. We've got a mess in Oregon legislatively and just, what they've done to pharmacy. It's the worst state in the country for pharmacy access. Surpassed Alaska when Rite Aid closed. Oregon has 70 independents left. That's it.
I'm uninformed. I didn't know that.
Oh, it's a mess. And not only is it a mess, they have 16 different managed Medicaids, 16 CCOs and 6 or 7 different PBMs associated with those. And the cuts were thin, but now we're bleeding heavy from them because we got so many of them. And so it's a mess.
By 1,000 cuts.
Yeah, exactly. So Oregon is struggling. But I was in a meeting with a legislator trying to get something done, move the needle. And the guy's like, well, why do you want to be critical access? What does that designation do for you? And I said, well, in Washington, we've got some legislation behind it. We're actually getting paid more, because when you say critical, critical means important, right? You go to the hospital, right? You go to the emergency room. I'm critical. We're critical. Access to what? Services that no one else can provide. Okay, the chains can give a flu shot. Great. Okay, we all can give a flu shot. I can have my kid come and give you a flu shot. It's like sticking a needle in an orange. I'm not, downplaying it, but are the chains doing compliance packaging, med sync? Are they doing med reviews? Or do they have drive-through and extra hours of the day, delivery? I could go on and on and on. Smoking cessation, diabetes managed, on and on and on. Those services are critically accessible to the patient through our pharmacies. So when I looked at him, I gave him the gas analogy, and their room was full of about 30 of those. I got PBM lobbyists in there, everybody else. And I said, if you go to the gas station and you put premium gas into your car, do you expect to pay more? And just, yeah. I said, well, that's what we're critical access. We're premium. We need to be reimbursed fair and equitable for the quality of product we deliver. And I didn't like that. Some of them chuckled, but, it's back to your question. Honestly, I think we're making some strides in the education part. Now it's just getting both sides to agree, and oftentimes it's out of our control because one of them is doing it for this guy so that I vote on this bill for this guy. And relationships in the political space is an interesting landscape.
It's a weird dynamic, I've always thought. I've never been close to it. Not sure I ever want to be that close to it, but I've always admired people who can operate in that and try to tell the story in that way, like what Doug and them do and what you guys do for what other pharmacists I know do. Like it's challenging and it's frustrating, but work that has to be done.
Yeah,
you have to.
Yeah, like what they say, get into politics or get out of pharmacy.
Yeah, really. Yeah. Like that's where we're at. And I think it's happening more a little bit at the state level. It seems like in certain places, I feel like that's where more strides are being made, especially legislatively, and plus more pharmacists being representatives in some way, which is really cool.
There's definitely some states that have done some good stuff. here lately.
Wrapping up on like kind of the NCPA journey. For people that don't know, and I'm going to plug this at the beginning in the intro, but like, we've got the convention coming up, and all of that. So if you're not going, go. You're a member, you go. We'll be there. That's for sure. But Jeff will be there. You'll speak. But like, I know that's coming up in New Orleans in a couple of weeks. This will definitely air all that.
So. Yeah, October 18th and 22nd. New Orleans, a lot of good programming, pre-programming. We got some Sarah Huckabee Sanders going to be there. My buddy Carter will be there as well, and the Aussies, Trent, who we just referenced in this, the Aussies will be over and doing some presenting too. So Trent Comey and his wife Georgina, and then Kaz Slavos, who used to be Trent's spot, or good friends with Doug and many of the board members. So we'll have an Australian presence there. Be kind of fun.
Oh, that'll be fun. That'll be fun. I can't not want to do the accent when I start to hear it. Like
yeah, well, there's some words that they use that are not appropriately used here, and so we got to be careful. But they just let it fly. I'm like, what did you just say? And they're like, yeah, and they're like, yeah, that's no big deal. It's endearing. I'm like, not in the United States.
That's not what it is here. Yeah, that's I don't know. They're good people though. Yeah. Okay, cool. We'll plug that. We'll make sure we put a link in the show notes for all of that so that everyone can see it. We'll push it and we'll pump it through our social for sure. We think everybody should be there. It's one of the coolest places to connect with everybody. I kind of want to like use this though as a quick sec to like transition to like just ownership and your ownership group with the Cascadia Pharmacy Group. What has, like, you've kind of sprinkled it in already, but like the current landscape in itself, how are you thinking differently? Because you guys are 35 plus 40 stores, something like that now. At number feels like, I feel like you're growing all the time, which is so cool to see. How is it making you think the current landscape or rethink or pivot services, whatever, about ownership and the business lines you're in around pharmacy specifically?
I am pretty optimistic, to be honest. We've had these closures, we've had this recession, we've had a lot of owners that, sorry owners, but just not good operators. Okay. And I don't blame them. It's not their fault. 10, 15 years ago, we used to make money by accident. You didn't have to really pay attention. You did well in the contracts. And then those started to shrink down and things started to get tight. And then we had COVID. Everybody got a whole bunch of government cheese. They got to get on the jail-free cards. You got a bunch of money. So those stores that were struggling got an influx of cash, kept them going a few years. And here we are today, and probably in the last 18 months or so, where we've lost some change. Rite Aid's unprecedented to lose a chain of that size, completely gone. But that's opportunity too, for us. And we're as busy as we've ever been. We've had stores double in Seattle in 6 weeks.
I was going to ask. I imagine there's a little bit of like managing growth in some.
Yeah,
agree.
No, and for our group with the size of it and the growth that we've had, I think we're 44 location stuff, 43, and it's absolutely astronomical, the growth, because of these shutdowns of chain, losing Rite Aid, and also just CVS doing a really bad job in their transition on the 65 brick and mortars they bought in our area. So it's been just like shooting fish in a barrel for us. But with the GLP phenomenon and those dollars, it's been a real management problem for me, and probably the toughest thing I've had to do since I started all this. But I see the light at the end of our tunnel there. But back to ownership, there's tons of opportunities. I think you got to be wired the right way for ownership. You got to look at the money secondary, and you got to look at the work primary. It's going to take me extra work, but I get to be my own boss and my own, leader, so to speak. And I mean, we just had a store broken into last night. My partner's down there at 5 a.m, and just it's that stuff that is part of it. You don't like it, but I've always said if you watch the pennies, the dollars will take care of themselves. And we really are our systems, our buying, we're really tight with everything. And now though, we have some regional presence where we're getting a lot of inquiries into, hey, can you help us? Can you do this? Like there's a CCO in Oregon that's contacted us to try to help them with some formulary management and save them money because, they're all the federal cuts and stuff, but Oregon's $1 billion in the hole, are negative to their budget. So where's that money coming from? And so you got to try to help those and hopefully they help us. But I'm optimistic. I mean, I think with some legislation and some reimbursement adjustments and our volume and all the clinical services work that we've done and credentialing and revenue cycle management, all that stuff, it's all going to just kind of come to a head. And I just came to me when I was speaking one time, I said, the old Florida Georgia song, Sitting Pretty. I think we'll be sitting pretty, in 18 to 24 months. At that point, you're going to start to see that narrative change with, opening stores again, greenfield openings, backfills of Rite Aids in areas, just things like that. Whether they do it as a partner or on their own, I think we'll see more. But I think right now the average owner went from about 1.5 to either 3.5 or 3.25 in the last 18 months. So
right, as far as how many stores they
exactly.
You mean by how many stores they own? Okay.
Yeah. So
okay.
we have a lot more multi-store owners, which isn't a bad thing. So we've cleaned up a bit of the bad operators and money managers and things like that.
It also mitigates a little bit of risk too. If you can get that, I imagine like a little bit of just like, hey, I got, if everything's in one store, 1.5 store, you take I imagine there's a little bit of like mitigation as long as you can manage it. That probably helps with smoothing out maybe revenue.
Yeah. I mean, it also depends, like in our case, we're not structured as one company. So all the money's not in one pot. Each store has its own bank account. And so, there's not a lot of, I can't, say, hey, Eric, I'm going to borrow $30,000 from you and give it to Jill over here. So we don't do a lot of cross-pollinating, but, we do try to set up for growth with having capital available. Although this was something that we had a store go from 2,500 a week to 5,700.
Holy smokes. Is that and obviously don't tell me anything I shouldn't know, but I was curious because you're such an open book. Is that like hey, look, we prepped for that working capital. We thought, we were, or man, we had to go pivot and go get some working capital to get through it. It's like, I was just going to talk through
it. I'll be honest with you, it was pivot. I mean, I needed to go, go get more working capital. I needed to move payables to certain dates and different than our wholesaler. The money was there, and we did all this when we were changing banks too. So there was a really craziness, but it's just getting the money in the right spot at the right time, right? I mean, our AR grew, so we know the money's coming, and the banks
it's coming.
See that. So it's it's plateauing now, right in time for what? Immunizations, and we're giving immunizations, and we got to buy more.
Another spike in
right,
working
exactly,
capital, right?
yeah. So I think we're over that, but now sustaining that volume with employees and maybe having to extend hours, and I mean that volume of prescriptions is serious, very serious.
Yeah. So you kind of said it. I'm just going to put a finer point on it. I guess I'd like you to put a finer point on it. From an owner 10 years ago, not the same. Can you tell me completely different than what you need to be now? I imagine.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's your thoughts on that?
Sorry. Yeah, talk about it at the student level too. You got to take business classes. You got to run them like a watch. The PBMs have commoditized the patient. And so the patient is now a commodity. You've got to look at them as a commodity, unfortunately. Right? I'm not saying don't give bad patient care.
I know. No one's saying that.
You've got to run the damn business like a business. And it's, if you got a patient you're losing $600 on, that patient, either you need to mitigate that portfolio of drugs or you got to move them on. And if you are not looking at your P&L and balance sheet at least a month after the close of the month, you are not being able to watch what trends are, what's going on, your cost of goods. So you need to understand a business. You need to look at your credit card statements and see what's coming out. I mean, we just took over a store, and no disrespect to him, but he's paying $750 a month to shred. Okay, I had another store paying $1,500 for IT that showed up once a month. I had, he's paying $45 for Spotify in the store. it's these little things, we got all, Apple automatic renewal apps, hitting your bank account at $2, $2. We get all that. You got to clean all that up. You've got to run it like a watch. You've got to watch your expenses as you grow. Go leverage your vendors for better pricing on labels, on vials, on different things, because growth and more demands less pricing. The more you sell, that's just capitalism. That's the Walmart way, so to speak. And
it makes sense.
I want to say that, and so it's you've got to run like a watch. It's a business now. It isn't just patient care access in your room. It's patient care access, and if you don't run them like a business, it's going to be very hard.
What so I know you're growing. You mind talking about a little bit of the Rite Aid journey and general and like that? Okay, cool. You're one of the very few people I know who even got to probably, I would say, either bid on it. I don't know if it was a bid process, but like bid on it and actually acquire a couple of these Rite Aids. Can you just like talk through it? I'm sure like there's probably hundreds, if not thousands, of owners who probably would thought in their head, wonder if I could, are they, because they're in the same neighborhood in some way or something like that. And I bet almost none of them probably pulled the trigger on it because it's just probably feels like a high complexity thing.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. It's something you think about, but then you're like, too much work, or I don't want to do it.
Yeah. It's just,
I thought the same thing. And then I, got an email from one of these brokers, and, I said, I just want to go through the process. I just want to see how it's done. I don't care if we get one. I just want to kick the tires. So I threw our name in a hat, and then they send me a list of the stores, and I'm like, okay, well, I want that one, that one, that one, that one, and that one. And then I get a list back that says that one, that one, and that one, and that one aren't available. I said, well, wait a second, it's a bid. And they said, well, those have already been taken care of. And so CVS got their choice, got to choose first. And so the only bid ones I got to choose from were from ones that were either not wanted or selectively not chosen by CVS. And I actually talked to the FTC lawyer about this. How is it a bid process on a bankruptcy when they're, I don't have all of them to bid on. Some of them have already been done before the bid process. So definitely not fair trade there. But we found two, one in Idaho and one in Northern California. We're in California, which I said I'd never be, but here we are. Went through the bid process, and it was crazy. I mean, it was a Zoom call with a sign that kept saying, come back in 15, come back in 15. And it wasn't like, hey, I get $10, $10, $10, $20, $20.
I was like, are you holding the paddle?
I was ready for the paddle, and it was just like, the docket has been recorded. Thank you for being on this. Boom, gone. And I'm just like, how anticlimactic was that? I've been waiting here to have some fun. And so we had submitted our bids, on a spreadsheet earlier. And I thought, they're going to read them off. They're going to sit, there was nothing. So it was actually really managed pretty poorly by the group that was doing it. The communication was rough. And then we finally got settled in with one of the Rite Aid guys, and he actually was real cool. Kind of, I think he had a little heart for independent. And yeah, we ended up with one in Idaho and then one in Alturas, California. And ended up, but it's crazy, Mark. They left $200,000 robots that nobody could use because they didn't buy the software from the robot
company. So they're basically bricked. Basically.
So the software company will support them at the same price to buy a new one. and then like in Alturas, they just left a tractor trailer. I got a semi tractor trailer that they just left.
You got a semi tractor trailer, like an enclosed tractor trailer.
No, just the truck, or just the back end. I don't have the truck.
Just the trailer, though.
They left everything in place. I mean, I feel like we've pilfered and taken stuff, but we've taken truckloads of vials from stores that have closed. I mean, they just left it in place. And if you go look in Seattle and Puget Sound area at realtors, all these buildings are for sale. You don't think about, these old property owners that were getting that $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 a month from Rite Aid in stock, and the leases are broken in a Chapter 11. And so they're starting to pucker a little too. So there's a lot of downstream on that. Yeah, so it was a very interesting process, and I learned a lot. I learned to bid even lower next time, because the creditors really would take anything,
Yeah, yeah.
and it was
Especially if
weird.
you were getting what other folks didn't want. So I imagine, yeah, I guess that's true.
Well, yeah,
So
they just want anything to move it. I mean, there was bids for liquor licenses, there was bids for the leases, there was bids for the scripts, the equipment. Again, you name it, you could have gone in any of that. And yeah, but quite the event. And then we got a whole bunch of just business organically.
yeah, I imagine for those that are shutting down, like that's where like all that growth, a lot of that growth came from for you guys, just as far as in the same stores you already have. Um, from there, what was it like? Um, I guess reopening those two stores specifically, though, was that a hey, look, we bought the scripts, we moved them over down the road from where they were next door in the same building, and then, or what did that look like?
So a lot of these had non-compete clauses in it, in these mall areas and stuff. So in Idaho, we moved one out to a new location. In Alturas, we actually were able to get in the building and took the lease over with an option to buy, and we reopened it. Now that's more square footage than we're used to.
I was like that,
yeah,
the like kind of a bigger flagship type
yeah. It
store.
was, I think it's 12,000 square feet, not the 40, not the 30, but still, even 12 is a lot. And so, I told them, lay a gondola and take the next two out. Lay a gondola and take the next two out. And just make it look nice, but space it out. And so we're maybe even looking to put in, maybe a partner clinic and a dentist and eye doctor, maybe create like a medical plaza in that, in the space and do something there. So, yeah, we got both. We got the building in there, but I mean, it was the California one. It was nice because I was able to deal with a family that owned the building, and they were like, parents were aging and suffered from some mental stuff, Alzheimer's, and so like at least I felt better about that than some big broker, rich like land person somewhere. They worked with me. They were nice. Now I know the money's going back to the family that probably needs it at the time, and so they made that transition good. But yeah, we got a big building.
That's one of the bigger ones I've probably ever been to myself personally. If it's like a community pharmacy. Was it so from a staff perspective? Where like, what did that look like? But that was just like, hey, look, that's what I was interested in, like learning too there, because obviously you guys are great operators, and then those are new kind of, I wouldn't call them greenfields for y'all, but kind of is. And so you got to
So
staff it.
the movement of the scripts went to a store that we opened up, so we had that staff in place. The other one, we actually partnered with one of the employees that was the PIC, and so he knew
Oh,
all the
that's cool.
staff, and he's from that whole area. And so I don't do things unless I have a person on the ground that can run and follow our model, and someone that I trust and is part of our family and care about, and they'd run through a wall for me, and I'd run through that wall as well. So we, when we're building what we're building as a family first, and then business partners, and then out. So we added a partner there. He's a great guy. Knows that area, wants to maybe expand even down into California and some of the rural areas potentially. But I will say during that transition that the state of California, I have to give them some props that they moved quickly, got us a Medi-Cal license contract, got our licenses to us quickly, and got us reopened probably faster than I would have even imagined for California. So I got to give them props. Really? They did roll up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Hats off. Okay. Well, that's cool. Okay. So you were talking about, so I won't keep you too much longer. I know you're a busy man, but, you were talking about also like, so I'm gonna go back into the pharmacy a little bit. All the services y'all are layering on and things like that. Can you speak to some of that? Because I'm sure there's hundreds of thousands of probably owners right now probably thinking, man, what's Jeff doing? What's his stores doing? What's different about his model a little bit? And I know part of the ownership structure and the way you guys do things together is a huge part of that. But imagine what y'all programs you run through inside the walls are a big piece of that. And I was just trying to like get a little bit of knowledge about that. How you're thinking about it now.
Yeah, I won't give you all the secret sauce, but I truly believe that a lot of it is pharmacy is a boat, and that boat has a whole bunch of holes in it and leaks money all the time. So water's leaking into that boat, constantly trying to sink it. Money going out. You could lose money on, just pressing the wrong button, or wrong NDC or just whatever, right? Right now where we're seeing it is we're sending our vaccines through, and if we miss a code or we miss something, it's either rejecting or we're not getting the admin fee. I mean, we have a whole team now that watches all of our vaccine claims on the backside. We're getting about 100 a day that have to be fixed and rebuilt, which others, other pharmacies probably aren't catching that. So they're losing a few $1,000 in the fall. That's and what I tell my staff, I say, listen, we lose money from the PBX that we can't control. Damn it, we can't lose money on things we can't control. So if we're not submitting, for the full acquisition or maximum allowable amount and all of that, and we're leaving money on the table, we're now losing money on stuff we can control. So then that gets back, goes back. But the key to our success really is having our pharmacy management system dialed in and using it. And I'm not here to blow smoke up your guys', but
I don't ever make a podcast about Pioneer, to be honest. So
the pharmacy management system is your brain. I mean, is your car, right? And so you make it dance. And we have stops where we don't want stuff to go out and go through. We have triggers that say, hey, they just got an inhaler. What about a spacer? We've got all of these things. We don't miss the base hits. And those add-on, ancillary scripts that are appropriate, in different spaces, and approved by the provider, we do well in that space. The other thing that we're starting to do better now is our size. And so, our cost of goods, leveraging our credit card processing fees or vials, all of that. As we grow, we'll keep trying to grind that price down. But more is just systematic, systems. Like we don't have any fancy label in any store. We don't do the pre-printed color labels anymore. It's the generic roll. The pharmacy management system prints it in black and white, and it goes out the door. Site savings. If we forget to order, we could get it from another store. It's the same label template. Those are the type of things that really keep us going, and we don't waste money. I mean, my team is watching, those $45 Spotifys and those, $199 fee for service software that we signed up for that maybe related to a fax or a texting, and we don't use it anymore. Those type of things, and the fraud too. I mean, we get fraud put on your cards all the time, and now they just put little amounts, $50, $100, and you don't know what it is, and it just keeps hitting you every month. So, we pay attention to detail, and we execute at a high level.
Yeah. So it's a really, like, you're not in Cascadia's group without having that mentality. Like, really, from that.
Absolutely not. Yeah. And don't get me wrong, we've got a great group. Some execute better than others, but at the end of the day, they're all executing at a pretty high level. Yeah.
And having their own various niches. I was going to talk to you a little bit too about just like a little bit about GLP-1s in general and all of that. And I imagine up in I don't know, I might be painting the Northern Pacific or Pacific Northwest with a broader brush than I should be, or some of the areas you're in with it. So I imagine some of those are, obviously they're working capital hits all the time, and with the PBM reimbursement, what it is, tough. Even probably at your scale, I'm sure it's still always an equation y'all are doing from that perspective. Have you seen any insight, like over this year, talking to other folks around anybody even looking to? I'm kind of going back to now NCPA and just like your broader efforts around pharmacy, but like, is anybody like even interested from a state level or a national level? A creative solution?
I'm not seeing any creative solutions. I'll tell you what we're doing. And it's a mess. I mean, I spend millions a week almost on these things right now. And so, basically, our cost of goods allows us to not lose money on these, but we don't make much. Okay, so let's just use $20 for a round number. The cost is $1,200. Okay. We have to dispense 60 of those to get $1,200 to cover the cost of one.
That means you're tying up 72-ish?
77,500.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Wow. Tying up $77,000 to make, what'd you say?
To make 12, well, it's 1,200, but that's 60 of those to get 1,200 back on the cost of one. That's 1.6% margin. What industry does that? Nobody. None. So what we've done, because we don't want to punk the patients and this and that, is we've done some mitigating. If you're just getting that script from us and nothing else, then that means you've been punted from someone else. If you've got other scripts in another pharmacy, we're asking you to bring those back. So if you're just a single and you're not 340B, we move you along. Then we look at, if you're cash payer, there still is some compounding options available. If it's patient specific. So we look at that. The cash payers don't bug me though, right? Because I could put the cash in the bank tomorrow.
Yeah, that's literally
So
you can your wholesaler bill immediately because that money's in your bank.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Yeah, it cost me $1,200. I charge them whatever. I get the money. I put it in the bank the next day.
Yeah.
We're looking at other options too. I know that there's some manufacturers who do maybe a direct to consumer. I think we really need to get. I don't know. I'm working on some stuff.
All right. I'm when you're ready to talk about it, man. I'd love to hear.
It's just infancy stuff, but we'll see.
I've looked at folks. I've looked at, and this isn't me fishing. But I've looked at folks. Certain folks trying to figure out, can I centralize to one place? Could I move these patients out of here, move them here? I've seen some various models where folks are trying to figure it out yet, not with quite the probably anyone would call it a major success, but at least some of the bleeding is stopped in that way, I guess.
Here's the problem. Most of the mail orders have stopped doing it. Okay. Express Scripts, all of them. So where does that come back to us? Rite Aid stopped filling GLP-1s 2 weeks before they filed for their second bankruptcy to generate cash to get them through the bankruptcy. Then y'all kicked too late.
Wow.
Only people filling them are us and the grocers. And the grocers are getting them in the door to get the cart full.
Yeah, they're getting more same cart sales in that way, right?
And so if we punt them to the grocer. Typically, we don't lose the whole patient, but that's kind of what we're doing with him. And so it's a phenomenon. I mean, and it has really affected cash flow in a huge way. A lot of pharmacies just stop taking.
Especially with PBMs on, you know how the pay cycles are with that, and then how much you're making or not making in that regard, and tying it up. Like you said, the cash customers are probably less of a burden because, you can pay that semi-monthly bill to your wholesaler because they immediately give you the cash. But it's a tough. Everybody's trying to crack. So
and the cash market is this big, right? I mean, I got one pharmacy in an area where the average income's $240,000, so they could buy, buy their GLP-1. You're not going to get that.
They're auctioning GLP-1s there probably.
On a serious note, when it was in short, we couldn't get it.
Yeah,
we had people, bidding up. They'd go, "I'll pay an extra $100."
Oh my God,
it was crazy.
That's wild.
Yeah, but now it's settled in. But yeah, definitely a challenge that we're all facing and trying to figure out.
Yep. Okay. All right, man.
Well, if we cut the PBMs out, the price would drop 72%. So there's your answer.
The structure?
It is. It's 71 to 72% rebate on a GLP-1. So take your $1,200, times it by 71, 72%. That's what the PBMs are taking on.
My goodness. Okay.
They're under 200 overseas, and some of them in the low hundreds, and they don't have PBM.
Imagine not to get how do I say it, altruistic, I guess, or whatever, but imagine how many more patients would be healthier. Just in a macro level. I was just thinking through, my goodness. So wow, that's a lot. Okay. Well, I mean, so I don't want to end it on that note. I don't want to end it on that note. But What are you? So you've traveled everywhere this year. When do you get to kind of hang it up for a little bit?
So I still sit on the AAP board as the chairman, and then I sit on the Align board from the PSAO side. Do some other local board work as well as some consulting stuff. So I still have all of that. My ship set sail at New Orleans on the 18th through the 21st, and that Sunday I do my speech. So you kind of go off as president there. You get one more year as a past president to sit on the board.
Past.
Yep. Yeah. And then you get pushed out to pasture. So really, actually, it should lighten up about Thanksgiving for me, and then go back to the normal busy. But I'm pretty excited because we just signed a contract to put a team in the Puma circuit. So I'm going to take my son and some of his players and some other players, and I've got a team that I'm going to take through the Puma circuit in 2026.
I do. Forgive me. I don't know what that is. What is that?
So it's a money grab, but it's like Nike or Puma or Adidas. So Puma, the shoe. So the kids will pay money or we'll sponsor them. Then they have to wear, Puma shoes and shirts. They get all decked out. And then you get to be in these tournaments with, real elite basketball. And
this is basketball?
This basketball.
Because you were a college basketball player, right? If I remember right?
Yep. Yeah. Back in the day, a few years ago. So I'm going to coach. I'm going to make myself busy, but busier with my family side because they took a beating this year. And that's a hard thing sometimes.
Yeah. Well, that sounds fun. I'm envious of that. That's really cool. Like, so is that going to be like all over kind of the country, or is that mostly up there?
We have like 30 different tournaments all over, but you have to go to 5, and then you go to Orlando in the end of July for the championships. And so there's one in Washington, so we'll obviously do that. We'll do one in California, I think Colorado, Arizona, and there, so trying to keep them over here because it's a lot for the parents to travel and different things. But Mason's got a good core of kids his age that could do some damage here in the next couple of years, and I miss coaching, and this will put me right back in the thick of things. And
how old are they?
Mason's 15, and the kids will be, so this will be 17U. We'll be playing in the 17.
Okay. Yeah, my son's 16, and so okay. I don't know if you feel that way, but man, they just keep you young a little bit, but they also remind you of how old you are at the same time. Like
they do that, and then they also make you older. If I have to hear "that's what she said" one more time, or
6, 7. Yeah. Are you hearing this? Oh my God.
Yeah. So. Or Dad, you can't wear that, or you can't do that, or those shoes look like Dad's shoes. I'm just like, okay, I am. Yeah.
I understand completely. All right, man. Well, Jeff, again, we'll wrap it up, but thanks so much for just being available, being as transparent as you are, man. I think everybody learns so much just from listening with you half the time. So, and that's so much just because you're just so open about sharing it. So just wanted to say thank you.
No, my pleasure. And, like I said, had a great NCPA year and come out to the convention. And I think is this a 3-peat or 4-peat for
this is your 4-peat, I think. I think you and Randon are the only 4-timers. It's just that's it. Just you and Randon, I think. It's from what I understand. I think that's what Brandon told me. So otherwise I'm lying about what Brandon said.
All right. Well, thanks guys, and have a good weekend.
Hey Jeff, you too, man. We'll see you.
Okay.
All right, bye everybody.